The auxiliary verb be sometimes looks like am or like I'm, right? Is or like he's, she's, are or sometimes you're, right? We're, they're, am not, is not, and is not we can also say isn't, are not, and are not we can also say aren't. Now, there are also past forms, was, were, was not, we can say wasn't, were not, we can say weren't, and sometimes we say been, been. Now, we use be as an auxiliary verb for two different reasons. The first reason is when we make sentences with continuous tenses. Continuous tenses. So past continuous, present continuous, future continuous, present perfect, right? So we have many continuous tenses. Continuous means the action is in progress. It's in progress. And sometimes we use continuous tenses to mean it's temporary. It's not forever. It's temporary. Okay, let's look at some examples of continuous tenses. But before we do that, if you watched the video about the auxiliary verb do, you will remember that we do not use do, does, or did in positive sentences. Well, for be, if you are making a continuous tense, we need be for every kind of sentence. A positive sentence, a negative sentence, or a question. So, like I told you, let's look at some examples. Present continuous, I am feeling. I am feeling much better today. A question, are you coming to the party tonight? And a negative sentence, we aren't. We aren't doing anything at the moment. Now, let's look at some past continuous sentences. They were, so be, they were studying in class when it started to snow. This is a positive sentence. We need be with continuous sentences. A question, was she sleeping at 10 p.m.? And a negative sentence, the wind wasn't blowing then. Or excuse me, it wasn't blowing hard then. So the first reason we need be as an auxiliary verb is with continuous tenses. Now the second reason we use be, we need be if you want to make a passive sentence. Okay, now you will study passive more in the 120 level, but when we make passive, we always need be plus a past participle. The past participle is the third form of the verb. Okay, so we need be plus the main verb, and the main verb must be a past participle. If it's negative, of course we say be plus not plus the past participle. Now let's look at some examples of passive sentences you need be. First, let's look at a passive sentence using the present simple. Those phones, so remember passive, you need be. Those phones are, and now we use a past participle, those phones are made in China. Now let's look at a past simple sentence using the passive voice. The internet was. So we need be, was, and the main verb must be a past participle. So the internet was invented in the 1960s. Now, let's look at something pretty difficult, and it's okay if you don't understand the meaning. You will study passive later in 120. But the last example is a present perfect simple sentence, but it's in the passive. So, has this room, the helping verb be, has this room been, and now we need a past participle in passive, so has this room been cleaned recently? Has this room been cleaned recently? So, be as an auxiliary verb is used with continuous tenses and it's used with passive sentences. If you'd like to practice this more, click on the link in the video.